Well, welcome to the biology presentation for Franklin Pierce University. My name is Jacques Veilleux. I'm professor of biology and environmental science at Franklin Pierce. And this is certainly a strange way for me to be interacting with you as a potential student and family of potential students. I'm used to standing in front of you in person and discussing our program. But with the current situation, we need to do it this way. And at the outset, maybe one thing that really separates our university from others in terms of large universities is that right now, I not only miss being in the classroom with my students and discussing information and material personally with them, I miss my students. I know them well personally. We're interacting now, of course, online, but I check in with them. I send them personal emails. They send me updates. I just received an email yesterday from one of my students that found a salamander and wanted me to identify it for him. So one of the things about Franklin Pierce that I enjoy most is the small size of our university in terms of student to faculty ratios, and the fact that I really get to know our students well and they get to know me well. And hopefully during the presentation, not only will you learn about the biology program, but you'll also be able to learn about how we interact with our students and the unique experiences that we're able to provide our students. Just a little bit about me and my background. I'm a wildlife biologist. My research specialty is the study of bats. I've been studying bats for about 20 years. And I've been at Franklin Pierce now for going on, I think, 18 years. So I've been here a long time, met a lot of students, and again, this presentation will go through some great experiences that I have with my students. I thought I might open up this particular presentation by looking at a field trip that I took last fall in my mammalogy class. In mammalogy, study of mammals, I'm a mammalogist. I take my students to the Museum of Comparative Zoology at Harvard University. I know the associate curator of mammals there really well. And we're able to get a back scenes tour of the mammal collections. So not the public natural history museum exhibits, but we're where the research collections, the museum study skins, where all the skull and skeletons are stored, and where researchers from around the world come to study mammals. And I ended up seeing a item on the shelf that somebody was studying, and I had no idea what this particular item was, and I thought it was fascinating enough that I'd share it with you. What we're looking at now is what's called the crab eater seal. They are an Antarctic species, and they're named for what they eat. At least that's what people thought for a long time. And I want to show you something. This is the skull and mandible of a crab eater seal. And when I saw this, I had no idea what it was. I had never seen anything like this, particularly these malariform teeth. Look at the structure of those molars in back of those large canines. Well, as it turns out, crab eater seals are not aptly named. They do not feed on crabs. What they actually feed on is krill, those small crustaceans, similar to what large baleen whales like blue whales feed on. They are filter feeders. And much like a whale takes in a massive volume of water into their mouth and then uses their tongue to push the water out and hairy baleen plates to filter out the krill, crab eater seals take in a mouthful of water, take their tongue, force the water through these malariform teeth, and the krill are left behind that they then consume. Absolutely fascinating structure of the malariform teeth. So I thought I would share that with you as an interesting piece of natural history. Well, the biology program at Franklin Pierce has a number of goals. For example, biology is incredibly complex and it is incredibly diverse. And by offering a breadth of courses that allow students to experience the complexity and diversity of organisms, and not only organisms, but theory that underlies organismal diversity, we're able to allow students to really experience a great number of different aspects of this discipline. We also want our students to understand how science works. Science as a way of knowing about the natural world. Of course, science is used in terms of the methodology to study chemistry, physics. Of course, in biology, we're studying the science of life. So we, as we'll see later, we begin early in terms of understanding the process of science, and we continue it all through their undergraduate study. We also want students to be prepared for either carrying on advanced study, for example, going on to professional school, like medical school, veterinary school, or perhaps graduate school for research. But some students plan on entering the workforce immediately after graduation, and therefore we want students to be well prepared to be able to enter into the workforce if they decide that advanced study is not for them. We work as advisors with our majors constantly, semester after semester to refine their goals, work with them so that as they are nearing graduation, if additional schooling is what they plan to do, we're working with them to achieve that goal, or if job placement is what they want to do, we're working with them to ensure that that goal is going to be reached. We want our students to see the big picture. I had mentioned earlier that science or biology is incredibly diverse and complex. And therefore, we offer a series of courses that allow students to dive into biology from the cellular level, the molecular level, also from the organismal level. For example, my mammalogy course, we're studying organisms within this one class, the mammals, right? Vertebrates that produce milk, females produce milk for their offspring, and that have hair. We can also look at the study of biology in terms of the complexity of how organisms interact with one another in complex ecosystems and communities. So we again offer a large number of courses that allow students to examine the big picture of biology in many different ways. Our campus, and hopefully you've had a chance to explore the campus perhaps virtually. I do encourage you to come to campus and at least drive around and walk around. I'm sure you'll have an opportunity to explore the campus at some point. But we have an absolutely beautiful campus. From my perspective, as an organismal biologist and wildlife biologist, we have 1,200 acres on campus of wetlands, old field habitat, mixed deciduous forest, coniferous forest. We have a lake, streams. For me, teaching courses in wildlife conservation, animal behavior, vertebrate zoology, mammalogy, I take my students in laboratory out into the field every week, and I don't need to travel with my students long distances in a bus to be able to experience the science of organismal diversity and ecology. We simply step outside, and we're able to do that right here. We also have, of course, laboratory and research space for those students interested in molecular work or anatomy and physiology work. And I encourage you strongly to come see the campus. It is a beautiful campus to arrive at every day for me and for students to wake up at every day and to work at. We are able to offer our students some really interesting course experiences. For example, every other year, we allow or we provide the opportunity for our biology and environmental science majors to travel to Costa Rica to study tropical forest ecology with two faculty members, where they might spend in this 2 week period time in high elevation cloud forests, low elevation rainforests, dry forests, temperate forests, examining the different types of forest communities, the different types of organisms that occur in those communities, and why different climate patterns affect the distribution and abundance of species within those communities. Every student that has gone to this particular trip comes back really a changed biologist, and I had the chance to go to Nicaragua twice when I was an undergraduate with a professor studying small mammals. And I tell my students all the time, all biologists should go to the tropics to experience the diversity. It really changes you as a biologist to experience this. So I highly encourage you that if you come to Franklin Pierce as a biology or environmental science major, certainly take advantage of this course. It is spectacular. What I'm going to do right now, sorry about this. What I'm going to do right now is talk about me personally because I pride myself not only in the classroom. I really try to do the best job I can in the classroom for my students, but I also involve my students in as many opportunities to be in the field with me as possible. For example, I bring my students every year. I am the bat biologist that does the hibernaculus surveys, cave and mine surveys for the state of New Hampshire. And I bring my students every year to count bats within our mines. We don't really have any caves in New Hampshire, but within our mines, as we count bats to determine what the population status is. So students have the opportunity to travel around the state with me and experience what it's like to be an actual wildlife biologist doing work for the state. I take my students in the summertime to capture bats during studies that I have done focusing on roosting ecology of bats, the natural history, the reproductive biology of bats. And you never know what you're going to catch. These are students that were netting with me for bats, but we happened to catch our smallest owl. This is a saw-whet owl. And we catch bats, we catch flying squirrels, we catch owls. And again, it's a way for me to offer students an experience of what it's like to actually be a biologist working in the field. What I've been doing for the last 10 years as well is I work partly during the summer as an environmental consultant on projects around the eastern US on natural gas pipelines, wind turbine developments, coal developments. My job is to go and do environmental surveys, endangered species surveys, to determine whether or not endangered species like northern myotis, Indiana bats, are present in sites that are going to be disturbed due to development. I have the opportunity to bring a student with me that is paid to do this work. And for example, here is a student. This is Tyler Russell that I brought out about 3 years ago. He ended up being absolutely spectacular in the field. He came out with me for 10 weeks, and during the time working with him, I realized he was something special. He took to the field immediately. He was such a fast learner, an incredibly strong work ethic. And by the end of that 10 weeks, I told the company, it's called Environmental Solutions and Innovations out of Cincinnati, Ohio, if you want to check them out. I told them that they really need to contact him, and if they have any full-time openings, that they should really snag him quickly. Within about 3 days, the owner of the company flew out to where we were in West Virginia. We went out to lunch. They basically interviewed him with me, and he never came home that summer. He graduated and he stayed in West Virginia. And this is a picture that he sent me right after he stayed with them for the rest of the year. And he was doing a survey for portals, places where bats might overwinter, and he found a red-tailed hawk with a broken wing. And he sent me this picture of him holding that hawk as he was bringing it in to be able to go for rehab. He still works for the company to this day. This is, I think, his third or fourth year working with them. In addition, this year in freshman biology, I ended up getting to know a student named Isabel Rasmussen, and I realized quickly that this student knew so much about wildlife. She was a great birder. She knew her wildflowers, she knew her trees. It got to the point where I would put up pictures randomly during general biology, kind of seeing whether or not she might know what it is. And she just knew her stuff. And I thought to myself, you know what? This is a person that probably could use early summer work in this field. She's something special. I contacted the company that I work for in the summer. I said, this student is unique. She knows more than any other student as a freshman that I have ever seen. And with that influence, I was able to get her hired for this summer, and she's preparing to leave for 10 weeks beginning in June to be able to work maybe with a wetlands project. She might be doing fish surveys. I don't know what exactly they'll have her do, but this is my goal, is to not only teach students in the sciences in the field, in the classroom, but to get them actively involved in the field so that when it comes time for them to get a job, they have a resume that is really unique and strong. Our other faculty, of course, do research as well with students. We are part of what's called the NH-INBRI system, where Dartmouth has a large NIH grant, National Institutes of Health grant, and small partner institutions like Franklin Pierce receive a large amount of money annually to do work with students that is geared toward health-related research from the biochemistry standpoint, cellular, immunological standpoint, and we have had 5 or so faculty members receive these grants, and they work directly with students in order to do active research that is then published and or presented at regional and national meetings as another way to allow our students to gain expertise within areas of research that they find particularly exciting. Again, some additional photos of students that are actively engaged in faculty research. Interestingly, the student on the right, Natasha Pastor, she was my advisee and she took a lot of classes with me. She ended up doing a mix of wildlife biology with me and cellular research with our geneticist, Susan Aruda. And I ended up helping her get into a graduate program studying whales, and right now she is doing a master's degree on whales where she is out on the ocean. She is actually using a crossbow to shoot whales with a small dart that takes a sample of whale tissue that she can look at the genetic component of the population of right whales in the Gulf of the Atlantic, and she's determining from that genetic structure the conservation status of these whales. She's doing fascinating work, and it's been just a joy to watch her develop as an active researcher in the sciences. I mentioned earlier that one of the things that we focus on in our program is to teach our students to interact with biologists and to think like a biologist. We start this process freshman year, first week of classes. Our students come into general biology lab, and I have them immediately go outside, make observations, ask questions about a particular project or series of questions that they have, develop an experimental protocol, design an experiment, gather data. We begin statistical analysis. They reach conclusions. So within the first 4 weeks of their freshman semester, we're outside, we develop a research project together, and we work through the process of how you ask questions, develop experiments and hypotheses, and reach conclusions using data that they then carry on for the rest of that semester and literally for every semester for the rest of their career. So this is something that, again, we start day one and we continue through senior year so that by the time students graduate, they are able to not only do science, but they can read scientific literature and interpret whether or not the scientific literature is valid, whether the methodology makes sense, be able to interpret the statistical analyses. This is absolutely critical to make our students the best possible biologists that they can be. I won't take too long to go through the individual courses. I think it's pretty straightforward for you um, to go online and look at the breadth of courses, but I do want you to see that we offer 2 different areas for courses of studies, 2 different degrees in biology, the Bachelor of Arts and the Bachelor of Science. I want to discuss briefly the difference between the two, and I do want you to be able to at least see these 2 different slides so you can see the breadth of courses that we do offer our students. You'll see that these 2 degree offerings are very similar. The Bachelor of Arts specifically is a degree for biology majors that may want to enter into physical therapy, eventually getting a doctorate of physical therapy program, for example. Or for students that want to go into secondary education for biology. These are students that don't need, for example, organic chemistry. They don't need, for example, physics unless they want to go for a DPT or Doctor of Physical Therapy. Therefore, we allow these students to take additional courses within the biology major, additional biology electives, and fewer support courses that are not needed for their degree, their career path. If we move on and look at the Bachelor of Science degree, this is where students that want to enter into medical school, veterinary programs, they want to enter into Graduate programs to do research, they do need organic chemistry. They will need physics in order to get into those programs. So we require, of course, that they take those courses, and that means that the number of biology electives is reduced by about 2 electives as they achieve that particular goal. Ultimately, we work as advisors with students to determine which one of these paths, Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Arts, is the most appropriate for them, and then we work with them to achieve these goals over time. As a capstone experience during senior year, we offer 3 different options. So during the senior year, students are either going to do what's called invited research, and this is competitive. Faculty members work with up to 2 students during their senior year, where students develop a research project with faculty members, and they spend the entire senior year working closely with that faculty member to complete this research project and then communicate their results either at a national or regional scientific meeting or certainly within our academic showcase at the university. This is an incredibly excellent experience for those students wanting to enter into a graduate program for research or into medical school, for example, because either of those programs really want to see students with a research experience background. So this is ideal. Another option is an internship experience. And oftentimes, this may be the best choice if students, for example, want to go into a physical therapy career. Ending up with a full 165-hour internship during their summer is an excellent way for students to gain experience in the field. They are going to get to know a physical therapist really well that might end up being an excellent reference for them as they're applying for a Doctor of Physical Therapy program. And from my perspective, an internship does one of 2 things. It either one, cements the fact that this is the right career track for you. You absolutely are passionate and you love this field. Or it may do the opposite. It may let you know what? This I thought this was going to be a great career path and it actually is not. And I think I'm going to end up doing something else. Both of those results are excellent. You don't want to waste your time in a career or going into graduate programs in a career that you end up realizing you don't love. So these are 2 great opportunities. We have a third option that is senior seminar for students that do not want to do invited research or internship. But in my perspective, either internship or invited research is really probably the best 2 options for students as they move through the program. So I'm going to end there. I do encourage you to contact me through the biology department. You can find me. A picture of me will be on the biology website. My email address is there. Please email me with any questions that you have about the program. I would be happy to speak on the phone with you as well if you do have any questions. I will end again with the um, point that the benefit of students coming to Franklin Pierce is that you end up working with faculty in small groups. You really get to know us, you really get to know the students around you. And in my view, this community that we have at Franklin Pierce is really unique. It's a beautiful opportunity for us to work together. I certainly miss the students that I see every day. I'm looking forward to the fall and getting to see them again. And I wish you the best as we work through this trying time. I hope that you all stay healthy. Again, if I can answer any questions, please let me know. And take care of yourselves. Bye bye.